Good morning, and welcome to the Great Basin Landscape Conservation Cooperative's Public Forum Kickoff Webinar. My name is Rick Carney, coordinator of the Great Basin Landscape Conservation Cooperative, and today we are providing a webinar to help provide an introduction to that public forum, its purpose, and the topics that we're collecting feedback on through the forum. You'll have an opportunity to submit questions throughout the webinar that we'll answer at the end. In just a minute, we'll walk you through how to do this. Next slide, Liz. Liz not seeing the slides. There we go. Thank you. This webinar is our opportunity to introduce you to the Great Basin LCC and preview our annual public forum, which just opened up this morning. We'll answer the following questions over the course of the next 30 minutes or so. What is the Great Basin LCC? What kind of work does the Great Basin LCC support? What feedback opportunities are available through this public forum? And how do I access and use the public forum? Now, I mentioned that we would show you how to answer or submit your questions that we'll answer at the end. So let's go to the next slide. On your screen, you'll notice that there's a small collapsed control panel in the upper right-hand corner. By clicking on the small orange arrow, you can expand that control panel. In this expanded control panel, you can send in your question. Simply type your question into the chat area near the bottom of that box and press send. Your question will be sent to us to respond to at the end of this webinar. So before we jump in, I'd like to ask you to take a quick poll. Have you participated in a previous forum? Yes or no? If you haven't already, please click the button next to the answer. Okay. So apparently, this is new to roughly 2/3 of the audience today. Well, we'll have lots of information to share with you. So why don't we get started? Next slide, Liz. Thanks. The Great Basin LCC is one of 22 landscape conservation cooperatives that were established across the country and even beyond. Better integrate science and management and to address climate change and other large landscape-scale conservation issues. Next slide. The Great Basin LCC is a partnership among public and private groups that have agreed to work together to meet large-scale conservation challenges across 5 states. We help to bring together researchers, planners, and natural resource managers to develop solutions for some of the most vexing problems in natural and cultural resource landscape-scale conservation. These partners include federal, state, and local government agencies, Native American tribes, universities, non-governmental organizations, and others that are committed to conservation. On the screen here, you see our mission statement. I'll give you a minute to take a look. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Our work is truly multifaceted. We work across political and organizational boundaries to promote collaboration on important conservation issues. We support the development of science-based information and tools for managers by directly funding some projects and leveraging resources for maximum impact. We help our partners to integrate traditional knowledge into our plans and strategies where appropriate. And we build synergy among public and private conservation programs by providing a forum where the partners can coordinate their activities. 4 strategic goals from our strategic plan are here on the screen. Okay, Liz. Well, this is the geography of the Great Basin LCC. We span 5 states, from California and Oregon in the west to Idaho and Utah in the east, with Nevada as the state with the largest proportion of the Great Basin landscape. We have multiple agencies operating within this geography. We have the USGS Climate Science Centers. Both the Northwest and the Southwest centers are here. Good. We have the U.S. Department of Agriculture Climate Hubs operating across the Great Basin. Again, one in the Northwest and one in the Southwest. The National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, supports the Western Regional Climate Center in our area. The Bureau of Land Management, though organized by states, has many districts within those states. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is organized regionally, and their boundaries cross the Great Basin LCC as well. The Forest Service has several of their regional offices that focus on the Great Basin. As you can see, there are a variety of organizations that operate within the Great Basin geography that has both its strengths as well as its challenges. But we have all agreed to work together on issues that are of importance for the conservation of natural and cultural resources here within the Great Basin. So, where do you come in? The Public Forum is a short-term interactive website. We use this platform to inform and engage the Great Basin community in the work of the LCC. The Public Forum provides you and other members of the conservation community an opportunity to collaborate on important conservation issues. The forum went live today, as I mentioned, and it will be open for the next 2 weeks. We host these online public forums every year. Our LCC recently celebrated our 5th year anniversary, and this year's forum in particular provides a chance for us to engage the conservation community at this milestone for our organization, to get feedback on the work we've done so far, and to collect ideas for future work. This year's forum includes several stations or web pages that provide information on recent work and accomplishments of the LCC, as well as several opportunities for you to join the conversation around these topics. We're now going to hear from a few different speakers who will introduce these topics, give an overview of our recent work in these areas, and preview ways that you'll be able to provide feedback. Sue Phillips, are you on the line?
I am on the line. Can you hear me?
Yes, fantastic.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining today. I'm Sue Phillips. I'm with the U.S. Geological Survey, and I'm based out of Corvallis, Oregon, and Boise, Idaho. Rick asked me to join today just to speak briefly about the LCC's role in the Department of Interior's Secretarial Order 3336, which is Rangeland Fire Prevention, Management, and Restoration. This was signed by Secretary Jewell in January of 2015, and it called for the development of a comprehensive and science-based strategy to reduce the threat of large-scale rangeland fires to the sage steppe ecosystem and to greater sage-grouse habitat. In response to the Secretary's order, the Department of Interior got a bunch of folks from a lot of different agencies, stakeholders, departments, and drafted the Integrated Rangeland Fire Management Strategy. A lot of in the summer of 2015. This strategy was meant to describe the actions and the investments that could improve the efficiency and efficacy of fire prevention and suppression and restoration activities in the Great Basin. And it was meant to be informed by and consistent with the efforts of the tribes, the states, and other landowners and stakeholders in the region. In that strategy, the department identified the Great Basin LCC as an extremely important source of science and data management for the strategy and for the plan as a whole. And the LCC is supporting work related to several actions from that strategy. And I think we go to the next slide here. Thank you. So for instance, just a few of the ways that the LCC has been really integral to this strategy. One of the key actions laid out that was to create an actionable science plan. This was meant to serve as an up-to-date and action-oriented blueprint for acquiring the scientific information that would be needed to support those efforts in suppression and restoration and prevention of fires. The Great Basin LCC coordinator, Rick, who you just heard, served on the writing team for the science plan, and Matt Germino, USGS and Great Basin LCC research ecologist, and several other of the LCC's stakeholders and partners contributed to the content of this actionable science plan. This was put out this fall, and it's available online. And I think we're going to hear some more about that in a few minutes when we talk about the Great Basin Consortium meeting, in which new steps will be taken toward enacting that plan. Also in September of 2016, all of the 4 LCCs that have chunks of the sagebrush steppe ecosystem, the 11 states throughout the West with sagebrush steppe, co-hosted a presentation on all of the scientific tools and methods that have been developed to support the implementation of the new conservation strategies that will be enacted as part of the secretarial order. Also working with the Great Basin Fire and Science Exchange and other partners, the LCC has supported the development of an easily accessible online source of information, tools, and resources for managers across the basin. This is a great website, and it serves as a portal to access summaries of work completed to date, links to data collected or generated under the strategy, and a whole lot of other resources that are really useful in thinking about these kind of issues. Also, the LCC is supporting large-scale research and demonstration projects for the control of cheatgrass and other invasive annual grasses. That was also a very central tenet of the secretarial order strategy, was to really look at cheatgrass control and take it from single plot level to really looking at large scale and even landscape level treatments of all different sorts. And the LCC is a very big player in getting some of those demonstration projects on the ground and getting them moving. And you'll hear more about that as well. And just a couple other activities supported by the Great Basin LCC. We're developing and maintaining an inventory of research commitments and capacity across the region. We're reviewing existing research prioritization and strategy efforts. And we're trying to identify science needs for the Great Basin. The science plan that we had a role in creating, and I just mentioned, does really deal with our most pressing science needs, but that needs to be updated. As we learn more and as we add to our body of knowledge, the plan calls for us to revisit that, and the Great Basin LCC will be, we're getting out in front of that, let's say. We're also identifying available funding sources to help support the action plan and implement new research in 2017 and beyond. And we're conducting periodic reviews and updates of the science plan. Once again, to keep that a living, breathing document that is actually serving our needs and getting toward that goal of science-based conservation and fire management. And I think with that, I turn it over to Maureen. Is that correct, Rick?
Yes, thank you very much. Maureen, did you join us? I heard this morning that she may not be able to because of some weather. So I wanted to share with you a brief description about our work in helping to bring together organizations for coordination. We coordinate or collaborate with 6 other partners to form the Great Basin Consortium. This partnership works to increase communication among the partners organizations to enhance our effectiveness in research, management, outreach, and funding activities. The consortium sponsors a conference every year that brings together individuals who are working to sustain healthy and resilient ecosystems. This conference is the most significant and regular interdisciplinary meeting of scientists and managers in the Great Basin. In 2016, the consortium teamed up with the Western Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies and Utah State University to host an event that would attract a broader group of people who have a stake in the Great Basin future. More than 500 managers, scientists, academics, and private landowners from across the West attended this event. They engaged in collaboration and exchange of knowledge around how to combat the dangers facing the region: rangeland fire, invasive species, climate change, and drought. In addition to the 500 people who attended in person, an additional 200 people viewed the proceedings online. In 2017, we're having our consortium conference in Reno, Nevada, and this conference will focus on the implementation of the Integrated Rangeland Fire Management Strategy Actionable Science Plan that Sue Phillips just mentioned. We'll have initial speakers to discuss the purpose and components of the strategy and the science plan, and then go into breakout sessions that will allow workshop participants to contribute their ideas and recommend steps for implementing the science plan, both over the short term and the long term. We'll hear about current research in these topics through poster sessions. And as a product of this event, we'll create a report on the 5 topics in the science plan. We're encouraging researchers, managers, and practitioners from all regions of the sagebrush biome to attend. You can get more information about the conference and registration on our Great Basin LCC website. So in the public forum, we ask you to share your thoughts. What is your experience with rangeland fire management and restoration? What topics related to rangeland fire prevention and management do you find most interesting? And if you're planning to attend our conference, what topics related to the science plan are you most interested in discussing? Let's move on. Sue mentioned Dr. Matt Germino, who is a USGS and Great Basin LCC research ecologist. He has been involved in a wide variety of work associated with the control of cheatgrass and sagebrush restoration post-fire. The LCC has supported multiple efforts to combat the spread of cheatgrass and other invasives. The LCC partners with the Western Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies Fire and Invasives team to develop a tool for technical resistance and resilience report. This tool allowed the Bureau of Land Management to assess and prioritize actions for restoration and rehabilitation of sagebrush of over 10 million acres beginning in 2016. Great Basin LCC staff also helped to co-author the Western Association report, Invasive Plant Management and Greater Sage-Grouse Conservation, a review and status report with recommendations for improvement. This report provided 11 recommendations on information management and science, leadership, coordination and communications, policies and regulations, and program management and capacity. One of the recommendations was to hold an invasive weed summit. Well, we did. The LCC staff helped to conduct that summit, and that gathered 240 leading federal, state, and local government leaders, along with private ranchers, tribal representatives, scientists, and conservationists. The group is drafting a regional action plan that provides short and long-term goals for dealing with cheatgrass and other invasives at a landscape scale. Beyond our work with the Western Association, we've also supported financially several research initiatives related to tackling invasives. In 2014, the LCC sponsored a project that looked at cheatgrass die-offs, naturally occurring death of cheatgrass, as a potential opportunity to restore native plants. Our findings suggested that targeting die-off areas for restoration could lead to improved success of native species. The team that did the work did a follow-up study in 2014 to test these findings at more sites and using more and different native species, including native shrubs and forbs. And as we've mentioned once before, Matt Germino was engaged in research in using a soil bacteria as a weapon in the fight against cheatgrass. Early results indicate that this bacteria embeds itself within the cheatgrass roots, preventing them from growing deep and long. In addition to directly supporting experiments testing bacteria, Dr. Germino provided research design support on several other partner-led projects. This collaboration and knowledge exchange helps coordinate efforts across the landscape and ensures a robust, useful scientific data is available to inform land management practices now and in the future. With that, let's shift gears and talk about forests and woodlands. I'd like to pass the microphone to Dr. Patrick Wright.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not a doctor, but I do direct the California Tahoe Conservancy and work with our partner agencies on a wide range of forestry projects. As folks on the phone may know, the forestry world is going through some of the same fundamental changes in how projects are implemented as in the basin and range and as in other areas that the LCC is involved in. Certainly a very strong new emphasis on large landscape projects, interagency projects that the Forest Service terms all lands projects. Secondly, a much stronger emphasis on collaboration, certainly bringing in key stakeholders and state and local agencies to an extent that hadn't taken place previously. Third, much stronger emphasis on different purposes of projects, moving away from a sole emphasis on either fuels management or timber harvesting into multi-purpose projects that are focusing on ecosystem services, biodiversity, and in particular in California on carbon storage. And then what that's causing internally is some new thinking organizationally about the interplay between the forestry staffs of the Forest Service and state agencies and the watershed staffs, and how to merge those agencies organizationally and how to potentially merge and combine permitting among what were projects that were traditionally dealt with through very separate organizational processes. And of course, one of the biggest challenges of trying to move in that direction is having the tools to better define how these projects are done and to what performance measures need to be in place. And I think it's fair to say that we're just at the beginning stages of that. A lot of discussion happening, but no real clarity agreement yet on how you define biodiversity, how do you define a heterogeneous forest, how do you define a resilient forest, how do you even define carbon storage. A lot of work is being done in California to try to come up with tools that measure these new desired conditions that the agencies are now looking for. And then as well on the performance side, how do we move beyond the traditional emphasis on acres treated and fuels management indicators such as condition class or flame length into measures of ecological indicators, again, measures of biodiversity, measures of resilience, etc. So a lot of work to come using the LCC and the scientific community in helping both shape and evaluate the performance of these new directions in forest management. So that's sort of the short version, but we certainly look forward to working with the LCC and others in the scientific community to help us sort of both guide, shape, and evaluate the performance of these large landscape projects in the forestry sector.
Thank you, Patrick. So in the public forum, you again will have the opportunity to share your thoughts. What specific challenges facing Great Basin forests and woodlands do you consider to be the most pressing? What kinds of efforts could the Great Basin LCC support to proactively address climate change and drought impacts in those forests and woodlands? And with whom should we collaborate on this work? The Great Basin LCC also works with Native American tribes, and I'd like to ask Mr. Bill Campbell to say a few words.
Good morning. This is Bill Campbell. I'm with the Intertribal Council of Nevada. I'm the Tribal State Environmental Liaison. The Great Basin LCC encourages the sharing and integration of traditional knowledge and contemporary science as appropriate to further Great Basin conservation priorities and land stewardship. Since 2013, the Great Basin LCC has supported 3 climate adaptation training workshops, including one in Fort Hall, Idaho in 2016. These workshops equip tribal professionals with skills to proactively plan and assess climate change preparedness needs. In total, 65 individuals from 34 tribes have participated in the trainings. The Great Basin LCC supports traditional knowledge research projects. For example, the LCC supported the Walker River Paiute Tribe's efforts to develop a Walker River Vision document, which included tribal ecological knowledge of traditional plants, wildlife, fish, and water, and hunting gathering areas for use in future resource management planning and cultural sustainability. The tribe also developed a pilot project to sow traditional plants in an area along the Walker River to determine best practices for revegetation. The LCC also supported a project led by Dr. Tamara Wall of the Desert Research Institute about using narrative stories to understand TEK in the Great Basin. Through a newly funded effort, the Great Basin LCC is building capacity for tribal climate change vulnerability assessments, one of the most complex and inaccessible components of the climate planning process. This project, led by Dr. Meade Crosby from the University of Washington, will provide guidance and information tailored to the needs and capacities of Northwest and Great Basin tribes, including online resources, downscaled climate data, and climate change summaries crucial for decision making. The project will also support tribal staff through the vulnerability assessment process via workshops, a webinar, and tribal climate technical support desk. I've already shared some of this with one of the tribes, the Timok Nation, and they're very excited about the website and the potential for webinars.
Fantastic, Bill. Thank you. Again, we ask you to share your thoughts through the public forum. Please tell us, what ideas do you have for further collaboration between the LCC and tribes in the Great Basin? And with whom should we engage to further support that collaboration with tribes? One of the important things that the Great Basin LCC aims to do is to increase communication and understanding about science, management, and cultural resources by making this information accessible and discoverable by the broader conservation community. We share information about our work using a variety of tools and platforms. We have our website, greatbasinlcc.org, which is a one-stop location for information about the LCC, the research and projects we support, publications and upcoming conservation-related events. We have quarterly newsletters with more than 1,300 subscribers, featuring the latest news from the Great Basin LCC, examples of our cutting-edge conservation work, and, again, upcoming events. We maintain a Facebook page where we post job opportunities, recent publications, news updates, and more. And we also have a YouTube channel where you can find videos from past Great Basin LCC webinars, as well as short clips about the organization. We also host an annual webinar series that showcase recent research supported by the Great Basin LCC. This year's series brought together scientists and managers to discuss how research can be incorporated into on-the-ground results. Topics included developing useful climate-related tools and resources, understanding native cultural dimensions of climate change in the Great Basin, mapping patterns of water availability across landscapes in times of increasing drought, using archaeological data to plan greater sage-grouse conservation efforts, predicting climate change impacts on big sagebrush populations, and also work on connectivity of habitats for Great Basin pig rabbits. The LCC also co-hosted 3 webinars with other organizations that are working in the region. Those topics included developing the science framework for the integrated rangeland fire management strategy that Sue spoke about, a webinar on quaking aspen management that was co-hosted with several other Western LCCs, and an overview of the protected area database of the U.S., which we co-hosted with other LCCs. So in the forum, we want to hear from you about our information sharing. We would like you to tell us what you would like to see on the LCC's website. We want to know your thoughts on our newsletters, emails, and the content, and what topics we should cover in future webinar series. The last thing that we need your input on has to do with the makeup of our steering committee. We have a steering committee that includes, as I said earlier, representatives from federal and state agencies, tribes and tribal organizations, academic communities, and the climate science centers in our region. This committee exemplifies the type of collaboration that's going on across the region that we need to address our most pressing conservation issues. We are interested in hearing from you about which individuals and groups who are interested in getting involved. In particular, we want to expand our geographic reach of the steering committee and especially seeking members based in Idaho, Utah, northeastern California, or southeastern Oregon. If you know of or are part of an organization working in these areas whose work aligns with the mission of the Great Basin LCC, we ask that you please suggest them on our forum site. So, to help wrap things up here, through the public forum, you'll be able to learn more about all of the topics you just heard us speak about and give us feedback on those issues. This feedback will be used to help us focus our efforts for the future. We want to know how much the LCC values impact the conservation community. All of this feedback will be compiled and made available on our website through a summary report. So at this point, I'd like to turn the microphone over to Ms. Liz Mack of Enviro Issues to give us details on how to use the forum website.
Thanks, Rick, and thank you to everybody who is attending today. So shortly after the webinar concludes, you will get this link here in your email. but you're welcome to go ahead and visit it now or write this down. It's greatbasinlcc.participate.online, and that is the public forum. It is currently live, and it will be live 24/7. And then the site will be closing on Monday, February 6th. So we encourage you to visit the site as many times as you would like to add your input and see how others are adding input and joining into the conversation. So I want to give you a quick preview here and show you what this site actually looks like. So here's the site that I've pulled up on my screen. And when you arrive, you'll land here on this welcome page that gives you a little bit of instruction on how to use the forum, but it's pretty self-explanatory. It's designed for you to move through this series of stations here sequentially. You're welcome to come back and check out a station again as many times as you would like. But for example, all of the stations that have this little comment bubble at the top, it looks like this here, those have places for you to give us your feedback. So if we go to the overview tab here, and it might take a second to load up on everyone's screens, but on the overview tab you can learn a little bit more about the LCC. There's a short 3-minute video that gives an overview of what the LCC does, and we give you an opportunity here to join the conversation. So anywhere that you see these boxes at the bottom of the page that say join the conversation in green, it's an area where we're looking for your feedback. And here we're asking you about some of the goals and objectives that are identified in our strategic plan. And we're asking for your thoughts on which ones we should prioritize. So those goals are visible on the right-hand side of your screen in the green bar. So you would just simply enter your name if you'd like your name associated with your comment, and then enter your comment here and click submit. And these, where it's a username followed by a comment, this will display similar to the comment threads that you may see at the end of articles. So you'll have a chance to see what others have added to the site, and you can reply and build a conversation based on those. Some sections of the forum will have questions that are a bit more specific. So here in the in action section, we give a preview of some of those supported projects that have been mentioned on the call today. If you want to see a bit more about what the LCC is supporting research-wise, you can click through here. And then down at the bottom, we're asking here for if anyone is interested in having a presentation at their organization or at a meeting so that they learn more. This information, since it's your contact information, it won't be publicly displayed, and that is mentioned here in the question. But here we just ask that you enter these into the field and then click submit so that we receive your comment. And I'll note that on some stations, you may see a mix of both survey type opportunities where you choose some information about how you like to receive information from the GBLCC. But then if you continue to scroll down, you'll also see a comment thread that we can display your feedback here, and we can continue to build this conversation around these different ideas. And so we're really hoping that this can be interactive, that this can be a chance for the community not only to give the Great Basin LCC their feedback, but to also engage with each other. So we encourage you to join the conversation on each of the pages. Come back as many times as you would like while the forum is live, and share this link with those in your network and your colleagues. We really want this to reach a wide range of participants so that they can have their voice heard in the Great Basin. So with that, I will turn it back to Rick. I think we're going to open it up for some questions.
Yes, please. At the beginning, we showed you how to submit your questions using the control panel in the top right corner. And Liz, can you read off the first question? Liz, are you there?
I'm sorry, I was talking into a muted microphone. I was just saying we haven't received any questions yet, but if there's anyone in the audience who has a question that they would like to pose, I encourage you to type it into the box at the bottom of your control panel.
Okay, hearing none, I'm happy to stay on the phone for a while longer, but for those that need to drop off at this point, I wanted to say thank you so very much for listening in on this webinar today, learning more about the Great Basin LCC and the work that we do. We do invite you to submit your thoughts, your recommendations, in perhaps even comments and criticism. We're open to any comment you may have using that public forum. Definitely want to hear from you and encourage you to share that forum link with your friends and colleagues, because the more we hear, the more responsive we can be. On behalf of the partners of the Great Basin LCC, I want to say thank you so very much and look forward to your input.